This is The Dig on the Huskers Radio Network podcast. Powered by Emeritus. Featuring Nebraska volleyball assistant coach Kelly Hunter. Here's your host, Jessica Coody.
Welcome back into this week's episode of The Dig. I'm Jessica Coody, and welcome in to Kelly Hunter again with us. Huskers coming off 2 wins to open up Big Ten play over USC and UCLA. Thanks for being here with us.
Yeah, it's fun. I feel like I was just here, but I love coming on the podcast.
It has been, though, like it's the true rotation, but it does. It feels like you were just here.
I know. A month goes by fast, especially in season and when games and all of that. We're already in Big Ten. It's crazy.
Well, how did you guys feel about the Big Ten opening weekend at home with the wins over USC and UCLA?
Yeah, it was really good. We didn't necessarily know, I guess, what to expect with 2 new teams coming into the Big Ten. We knew that they would be really fired up in a new conference, and especially to come to our gym, people always get really excited to come play us. So we were excited to kind of start off the Big Ten, especially with some new teams that we haven't played in the years past. And obviously each team changes every year, but just having 2 new teams is always fun. And then obviously Batenhorst got to come back, and it was really special just to see even the signs that our fans had made and just the warm welcome. And I know it was super emotional for her and for a lot of people, but it was good to see her again.
How special is that? You know, I've talked to Jalen about it, couple different people, but just the fact that, you know, in this day and age when it can be a little, you know, people can leave on bad terms with the fact that Allie was welcomed back. So it was such a warm welcome, but then also just the relationships that she's maintained with the coaching staff, with the players, just how special is that?
I think maybe this generation, or even, I don't even know what to call it, but everyone is so connected with each other. And we see that with our athletes for sure. They're spending all of their free time with each other, whether it's going to the farmer's market or having a football watch party and stuff like that. They're always together, even when you would think they would want to break from each other potentially. But they're just so connected, and to see that kind of continue, even though Allie did make a decision to leave our program, she's still part of our family. And I think it was just really special to see the way that they've stayed connected, because I know for me especially, just relationships are super important, and obviously we want to win and we want to be the national champions and all that stuff. But the things that I remember even from my time as a player and just all the teams that I've been on is the relationships. So to see them stay connected, to be able to see Allie again was really cool.
Well, one of the bright spots against UCLA was Taylor Landfair, how she came in and was really big for you guys. How did you evaluate her performance? How did you guys break down her performance, and how important was she to that win?
The really cool thing about Taylor is she is just stone cold. Like, nothing rattles her, nothing gets her too high or too low. She's just very consistent in her demeanor. She's not like Rebecca or Lainey where she's up super high and super energetic, but I think it's a really good balance for our team when we do have some players who are like that. But like I said, she's just consistent, and she's obviously played in huge matches and was the Big Ten Player of the Year a couple years ago, so she's no stranger to the pressure and knowing the moment. But I thought, and we were talking about it, that she came in, was steady, did her job, and made a difference. And that's all you can ask for out of someone who's coming off of the bench and into the match. And we have this term that everyone, if your name is called, if your number is called, be a game changer. And she was exactly that. So we couldn't have asked for any more from her.
You guys have been on such an impressive stretch, and you look at the ranked teams you knocked off, and really, I mean, just dominated, I guess, in terms of just the scores. So what's gone into maybe the last few weeks? You feel like maybe just more of a rhythm, more of just kind of starting to click and figure things out?
I would say it's kind of fine-tuning. So we're not changing anything too drastically. We're not the type of program that makes changes after a loss or anything like that and just kind of completely tries to throw the wheels off and make changes. But I think it's just a fine-tuning, and I feel like our group feels mature and they understand the areas that we need to get better at, and they really focus on those things. So we are able to present to them, hey, here's where we struggled last week. We're going to work on it this week, and here's how we're going to do it. Here's what we were really good at last week. Great, that's a strength. Let's keep playing into that. So I think this group just really understands what's needed of them, how we need to grow together and get better. And I think there's also that intense attention to detail. And I think that comes with the maturity of, okay, maybe we won the point, but I was really sloppy in the point. Maybe as a freshman or a new player, you are okay with just winning, not how you win, But I think now they're unsatisfied if they're not playing clean. And I think that's really cool because one of the things we're trying to do as a coaching staff is to put the game in their hands, because at the end of the day, it's the 6, 7, 8, or 9 people who are out on the court. They're the ones who are controlling the match. So even in practice, there's times where we're trying to set up drills or put them in situations where they need to be the ones to really work through it, because that's exactly how a match works.
You know, after, I can't remember which match it was, but Merritt had talked about, you know, we're just continuing to find our chemistry with Bergen. And, you know, some people from the outside might say, oh, well, you've played with Bergen for a year now. So can you maybe take us through that and how that continues to develop and be a work in progress from season to season with setter to the outside hitters? Or all the hitters, I guess.
I think in the preseason, when we don't play and we have these 3 weeks or however long it is to really work on some technical stuff, there's some things that you have to work through that maybe when you're in season, you just kind of get used to, or you kind of compensate a little bit. So, for example, I guess let's use Merritt. She was working on her footwork, and so just kind of fixing some biomechanical things there and just having really good technique. So with that, when you're learning and you're changing something, there's going to be kind of that dip down and that little bit of an ugly part. So we try and really hammer that out in the preseason, but obviously new habits and new techniques are hard to build. And so some of that kind of bled into our play. And one thing we don't want them thinking about when we're playing is anything technical. You should be tactical, feeling free, feeling confident. And I think sometimes early on in this season, maybe they were thinking about those technical changes that they were trying to make in maybe the wrong moment in a match. And so I think some of that chemistry and that setter-hitter connection could have stemmed from that. And just, it's intricate because you have 2 separate parts working on their craft, but they still have to come together.
Yeah.
So I would say it was just a little bit of Bergen's working on some things, our attackers are working on some things, and then now it's all about combining it. And I think we're kind of through that sticky, ugly part of what are we trying to do? How are we trying to get better? And now it's just, like I said, fine tuning.
Fascinating. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, in terms of Merritt and JB and Lauren were talking about this on the broadcast of maybe getting her back to that 6 rotation. And then Coach Cook said, well, she's got to be able to attack from the back row and be better at that. What goes into that for Merritt or anybody to be able to earn that spot to play those 6 rotations to be better on the back row?
It's pretty nuanced because there's the offensive side of it and the defensive side of it. And just to use Merritt and Laney as an example, because they're going in and out for each other, like Laney's got that defensive, she's going to get every ball up, she's going to chase it down, she's going to keep rallies going, but obviously she can't hit the ball. So for Merritt, it would just be kind of being really consistent in her back row attack, and then can her defense be good enough that it lets her offense shine? Because if we're not digging the ball or if we're letting teams kill it on us, then it doesn't matter if we have that back row attack. So I think it's interesting for us to kind of figure out there has to be give and take somewhere. And so with those choices of who stays all the way around and which little comes in for who and how that looks, it's really, there's a lot that goes into it, and it's hard because they're all such good volleyball players and they all bring so many different things, but it's just where are we willing to maybe give up a little bit? So for us, it's in rotation 4. We don't have that back row attack, which can be kind of a struggle because we only have 2 attackers, and then if Bergen's up at the net, then she can attack as well. But right now we're thinking like the defense and being able to transition is really important, and Laney provides a lot of great intangibles as well there.
Laney would argue she's pretty good on the front row.
She would. I think she led her high school or her conference or something in kills, and so I remember when she got stuck in the front row, and she was like, "Why did you guys not set me? Why did no one set me? Like I was wide open." So she's funny, but that's like those are the things that she brings, like that mentality. It's really special.
Absolutely. Well, last week Jalen was on here, and boy, he was just going on and on about Bergen Reilly and her ability to backset and how hard that is of a skill to be really elite at it. As a setter, can you dive into that and why that is such an elite skill and why Bergen is so good at it?
Our level, especially just being able to backset in difficult situations is huge, because at the younger level and even just some setters who don't have the confidence to do it, you'll just see them setting the ball to the left side. And we're out of system a ton, and so the left sides get a lot of swings already. So if you're able to take some of those less than ideal digs or passes and set them either to the middle or to the right side, it just really diversifies your offense. And so I think the great thing that Bergen does is she's really balanced in her attack. She's not setting one player 40 balls a night. She's really balanced and trying to get everyone involved, but also just taking risks. And I think one of the first things her and I had talked about when she first sat in my office a year and a half ago, it's like, hey, if we're in these less than ideal situations, you got to be comfortable setting it back. Like, that's going to make you elite, and it's going to raise our offense like 100 points. And so from the start, she just took those risks and got really comfortable. So now when she's off the net or pushed forward or pushed back, it's not a difficult set for her to make. So a lot of times just having to go over your head, and you obviously can't see where you're setting it, it's just a lot harder. But if you rep that out and you get really comfortable doing that, it's not as scary anymore. And I just think sometimes setting the ball where you can't see it when you're off the net can be a little bit scary.
Where have you seen her improve the most from freshman to sophomore year? Because she's so good as a freshman. What areas of improvement have you really seen here in her second year with you guys?
The biggest thing I would say is her attacking and just being much more offensive up at the net and just treating herself like she's an attacker and she's part of our offense. And you can see in the way that she's attacking, it's not just, okay, I'm going to try and place it here and put it in the perfect spot. Like, she's being aggressive.
Yeah.
And I think that is also reflective of just her mindset and her mentality. She's quiet, but she really wants to win, and she's intense, and she knows how to keep it light but also be intense at the same time. But I think we're seeing a little bit more of her, maybe like fire and leadership, and just her demeanor. It's palpable now, whereas before I think she's just, I'm a setter, my job is to run the offense, and she's obviously great at that, but now I think she's inserting herself into the offense as well as an attacker.
You know, after both the wins over the weekend, Coach Cook was, he still had some things say, we got to be better at this, we got to be better at this. And, from the outside, you're looking at, and you're like, hey, you swept the top 20 team, So how do you guys balance, hey, celebrating and hey, we've got some really good streaks, but then we're not good enough type of thing. How do you balance that with this kind of team where you want to continue to challenge them, but also not, I guess, going too far in that regard?
The amazing thing about just John as a head coach and as the leader of our program is exactly what you said. Like, he always wants us to be better and is, in a way, not satisfied. Because I think when you get too comfortable or too satisfied, or we're on this winning streak, that's when something comes back to bite you. And so I think that's a big reason for why our program and him specifically have been successful for such a long time, because there's never any space for complacency. And I think our athletes and our girls, they're the same way. Like I said, they want to fine-tune things. They want to be better. They're the ones that really, truly celebrate the good things, or if we have a really ugly point but we win it, they're like, hey, we won the point. That's what volleyball is about, is winning the point and winning the game. So I think it's a good balance, and they are able to filter, we need to be better, but we are still doing some really good things. It's not just, we got to be better and that's it. I think after every game, coach has a saying, and it kind of changes depending on what point of the season we're in, but right now it's any win in the Big Ten is a great win. And so that acknowledges that it can be an ugly win, it can be a flawless win. A win's a win, but even if we play great or if we don't play great, we're in on Monday or Tuesday, whatever day it is, and we're ready to work on our weaknesses.
It's crazy. I was going to actually ask you about, Coach Cook and his success. He celebrated his win number 700. You've been a part of several of those as a player and now as a coach. So you just talked about maybe the never being satisfied aspect of it, but how much has he evolved, and what do you think has allowed him to have this much success for so long when, generations of players have changed so much over the time too?
I think the biggest thing is just we have standards and metrics and certain statistical goals and stuff like that. And we actually just met about a couple things this morning about what we need to get better at. Jalen, Jordan, myself, we all came up with 3 things that we need to get better at. And then we're talking about stats, and we're like, do stats matter? And we're just kind of going through all of this stuff. But there's always a standard set by him that if you're if you're the starter on the team, if you're the third in line, everyone's held to the same standard. And that's a really competitive, high-performing environment that he's been able to sustain for a really long time. So I would say that's consistent. I mean, I didn't know him back in 2000, but I would assume that that's consistent from then to now. But I think the biggest thing has been just adjusting to kind of the dynamics. Like I mentioned earlier, our athletes now are so much more relationship-based. It's not just, you're my coach, tell me what to do, I'm going to listen to you. It's not like that anymore. And I think he has really learned that and understands that, and just he really enjoys connecting with them as well now, whereas I'm sure back 20 years ago it wasn't that way. And I know just with talking with Lindsay Peterson, I know it wasn't that way. And so now just seeing the way they want to build relationships with him and he wants to build relationships with them, it's just, it becomes like family, and you want to do well, and you want to do things for people that you really connect with.
Like start a Twitter, TikTok account.
Apparently, that's one of the things, and it's funny to me because he would always just be like, "Gosh, we're always making TikToks and we're making videos. Like, do they want to play volleyball?" Like, kind of just joking, not like do they want to play, but it's part of being a Nebraska volleyball player and being on social media and all that. And now he's got a TikTok. So
how do you evaluate his TikTok?
I only watch them if they pop up on my page. I don't go like seeking it out, but I know that Harper and Merritt are always kind of filtering. They're the ones behind making the videos and all of that. So I trust them. I think most of them are hilarious, but I haven't seen them all because sometimes the girls will pop up on my page too, and I'm like, I don't want to, I'm just going to scroll. I don't follow them or anything, so I haven't seen them all.
When you were a player here, if someone would have told you Coach Cook was going to have a TikTok account, what would you have said?
I would have probably said BS. That's just not going to happen. But yeah, I think it's hilarious. And the following and the views and everything, it's insane. It's crazy.
It really is. I did want to circle back to something that you had said just a minute ago when you were talking about wanting to get better. You said the guys dove into the stats. Do they matter? Do they not matter? Are you a stats person?
I am not.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard because, especially setting and offense, like, it's hard to put stats on that. And, like, you could say, hey, we want it to be super even. We want everyone to hit this number. But especially on our team, we're so well-rounded and we have so many different attackers. If someone's hitting 300 and someone else is hitting 100, but like they're balancing each other out and we're still finding the right people in the right moments, then that's okay. Mm-hmm. So I think certain skills for sure, like passing it's pretty black and white. Like you either passed it pretty good or you didn't. But for me and my kind of offensive mindset, there's so many intangibles that it's hard to measure. So sometimes you can see a stat and then you go back and you actually watch and you're like, oh, well, that's why that happened. So sometimes like the stats are a good metric, but it's not the full story. And I think it's good to have consistency and to strive for these things. But sometimes like volleyball is a game of errors. So sometimes it's just you hit a ball around, someone messes up, your stats aren't very good, but maybe you block really well or something like that. So I think there's just there's a big picture story, but that the stats don't really tell.
Yeah, because I wonder, because when Jordan was on, she had said she's not a stat person at all. And so, but, we always hear that reference. So I didn't know, as a coaching staff, how you guys balance, okay, we want to maybe use some of the numbers, but also we're not going to get caught up in it.
I think the cool thing about our staff is I think John's very into the stats, like we said, the standard and holding that. And I think Jalen is a little bit as well. And then I think I'm kind of like the third one down where I'm like, I'm studying it, I'm looking at it. And then there's Jordan who's like, we just want to win the game. So I think we have all levels of understanding the stats and like the story behind the stats. And I think it's a really good compliment for like someone like Jordan who maybe doesn't look at them as much. And then her and John can talk. And this actually just happened this morning. And they're like, well, we need to have these metrics and yada, yada, and just kind of balancing each other out. But I think it's cool to have both sides, so we're not all exactly thinking alike all the time.
Yeah.
It's a good, challenging, collaborative environment.
Speaking of stats, I know one that you guys do pay attention to is the serving and the service, the ace to error metric there. How has the serving come along? How have you guys liked the way that progress? Because it seems like it's going a lot better. You guys are trending in the right direction there.
We've definitely been missing fewer serves than I think last year. I swear we averaged like 15 a match, no matter how many games we played. But I think the biggest thing that we're seeing now is if they are missing or erroring, it's a good aggressive miss, because it's hard to define or to like talk about it without seeing it, but there's good misses and there's bad misses, and you can tell which misses are coming because I don't want to mess up versus the miss of, okay, I'm rolling, I'm going to go for it, and I just barely miss. So I think the types of errors we're making are better. And with that, we're getting more aces each game. And so we want to be around like 1-to-1 ace to error ratio. But I just think like the intangibles that we've been talking about, the types of errors they're making, it's getting a lot better.
Okay, I did want to ask you about this because I always love your game day fits. I love the Sunday fit with the G's of the red jacket. How do you go about picking out your game day fits? Are you superstitious? Do you wear things like if you get beat in one? Because, some people are kind of wired that way. So what's your mindset? How do you approach what you're wearing on game days?
Well, me, Lindsay, and Jordan actually all have a group chat, and we'll be like, what are you wearing today? So we collaborate on like how fancy we're going to go. We also, this is so funny that we're talking about this, but people are so into it. But we also go a little bit more casual to start the season and then get a little bit dressier as we go. So you don't want to start with your best outfit early on. I don't have any superstitions. I try to always have a little bit of red somewhere. Some outfits I'll either go all black or all neutral, but try and have like either red on the shoes or a necklace or something like that. But the only superstition I do have right now, because I'm not a regimented, superstitious person, but the only outfit I will never repeat is I wore an all red like blazer and pantsuit last year against Texas, and I've worn them each separately, but I will not wear them together again. I just can't do it.
That's great.
It did. I remember when I walked into the gym, I'm like, does this have an orange tint to it? And then I'm like, it's my fault. So that's my only superstition.
Sometimes reds are hard. I get challenged by that too sometimes. Like it looks red in my closet, and then like I get in this lighting and it does look a little orangey, and I'm like, I'm sorry, in my closet it looked red.
Yeah, and then there's like the whole maroon kind of tint too.
Yes.
So yeah. I don't know. It's hard. All the shades of red is hard.
Well, I love your game day fits.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's, I guess, circle back and talk this week because you guys go on the road at Illinois, at Iowa on Sunday. What are the keys to this week? What are you guys looking to do this weekend in the road trips this week?
I think it's our not first, but we're traveling again in the Big Ten and a new gym. Most of our team has played in these gyms before, so they understand that. But I think just the different atmosphere, we almost get used to playing at home in the preseason because we mostly bring teams in, and I think we get used to the crowd bringing energy and the crowd kind of fueling us a little bit, or even sometimes we're talking about, hey, we need a couple hustle plays to pump the crowd up. So it's kind of just a different atmosphere of going into a different gym, and Illinois has a great atmosphere. It's all right on top of you. Obviously, we know their head coach, Chris Thomas. He used to coach for us, so that's always fun to go back and see them. But they're a tough serving team. We were just talking about, of course, stats, but like their ace to error ratio is insane. Like they have 100-something aces, I think, already on the season. And so they're a really tough serving team. And then obviously Iowa is always kind of like that little border battle that people get really amped up for. And it'll be an exciting week with some travel and then just kind of getting used to the Big Ten and seeing those teams that we have seen again in the past.
You guys will have a pretty good showing at Iowa, right?
I think so.
Nebraska fans normally travel pretty well there.
Yeah, honestly, it doesn't even matter where we're at. A lot of Husker fans show up. Like I always remember Maryland, then when they play in their smaller gym, it's like 75% Husker fans. So our fans, they show up no matter where we're at.
Awesome. Well, great stuff. Best of luck this weekend. Always enjoy chatting with you, and we cover a little bit of everything with you, so I always love it. So thank you for being here.
Yes, of course. Thanks.
Again, that's Kelly Hunter with us here on this week's episode of The Dig. The Dig is proud to be powered by Emeritus. Emeritus powers this podcast and all of Husker women's sports. Thanks for listening and watching, and as always, make sure you subscribe and like wherever you listen to never miss an episode right here on the Huskers Radio Network podcast.